Podcast and also the host and the creator of the Tape Study series. And yeah, I wanted to come on here to quickly talk about a couple of things, updates, and then maybe if you want to call it a little bit of a rant. But I really don't want to make this a reoccurring thing, but I do think that there should be some type of live stream chat etiquette talked about. It's that time of year again when you need to talk about issues that affect everybody and whatnot. And I do think that having a live stream chat should be the most neutral, grounded base there is. Now, before we get into all of that, I do want to say thank you everyone for following the Square Circle Podcast right here on youtube.com/Square Circle Podcast, and to bring me up to 764 subscribers. By the way, if you do hear stuff in the background, it's because I do not have my mini mics. For some reason, my Movo mini mics, even after I have charged them, they do not want to work with my phone for some reason. They do not want to connect. So I don't know if I need to just test them out on another phone, which I'm going to be testing them out on another phone, or we need to somehow get a brand new freaking, Bluetooth of a mic. So that way it could just be me, and you don't have to hear sirens in the background. You don't have to hear my fan. You don't have to hear someone yelling on the game and whatnot. And it's already 1 p.m. too. And if people come into the chat and ask questions about SummerSlam, I'll answer them. But I do have some stuff to talk about and whatnot. I have no idea where the chat is going to end up in this live stream because I'm using my phone for the first time, so it is in vertical rather than landscape. I'm not using my laptop at the moment. If you guys don't know, my laptop is currently on its last legs. But I'm trying to do everything that I can to continue to do content creation in the wrestling space and continue to help out with others that I've gained a pretty good friendship with and a pretty good rapport. And by the way, there is a shop link down the bottom if you want to help out the channel, help out the brand. I have some new merchandise. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base and talk and update and whatnot, and talk about things. So I have been rebuilding ever since, never getting back on Twitter. I do not even think about being like, hey, let me go check in on Twitter. Nah, fuck that. It's way too much of a cesspool. It's way too many crybabies. It's way too many people. I'm the victim because they want to be a victim and they want you to give them lots and lots of empathy. They want you to, stay quiet, stay in your box, but yet then go and put up others on a pedestal and whatnot. And it's it's so, inequality while they say it is equality. And I'm just going to talk my shit here the same way that I talk my shit on Instagram, that I am regrowing. I am regrowing on Instagram, which marieshadows.scp is where you can also hear my off-the-cuff thoughts about things and rants and stuff and what wrestlers do wrong. Because, even though I do not like to say that this was wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, but there are just some people that just don't get it in this business. There's a particular wrestler out there that likes to cosplay as a wrestler, and he is not even in the WWE tryouts for SummerSlam, even though WWE is his biggest dream to ever accomplish. And if WWE is your biggest dream to ever accomplish, you do everything in your power to get there. Even if they have to tell you, no, it's not the right time, at least you showed up, at least you are ambitious. And that's what they really do like about people who have that kind of work ethic. But when you tend to be invisible while trying to be invincible, you tend to stay on the sidelines a lot more than what you need. But as far as updates go, I have been really revamping how I approach talking about professional wrestling and talking about the shows and whatnot. I have not watched a single episode of the G1 Climax just because I don't think, I still love New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okay, I still love New Japan Pro Wrestling. But it's still going to be at a 1% of me loving New Japan Pro Wrestling because of their decisions and them still being part of AEW, which is not helping them. it really is not helping them at all. And I totally get it that there's probably some, backstage stuff. There's probably like some money stuff going on, and with Japan dealing with their whole immigration thing with illegals and stuff like that, and trying to get back to, being Japanese. I totally understand that sometimes it might be a little jarring and whatnot, and then like wrestlers having to fly back and forth between the United States and Japan, and those fees adds up. But again, if you want the grind, you have to do the work. Professional wrestling is not made to give people participation trophies. It's not. The same way that like any other job that we have created, it's not meant to give participation trophies. It really isn't. But sometimes people think it's all about participation trophies, that like if they did something, they get a trophy. If they did something, they get a high five. If they did something, life would be easier. Life is not easy. You could try to make life easy by slowing down and not being on social media, and loving your life the way that you want to love your life, and not try to force people to believe in your agenda, not try to force people to believe in your beliefs, and try not to force people to believe in your delusions that you want them to be in this fantasy world with you, when the majority of us live in a reality that is a lot more humbling, that is a lot more like understandable than trying to be in a delusion. But back to the point of that, I still love New Japan Pro Wrestling, but I haven't watched anything because there's nothing really to excite me about. There's nothing really to be like, let me, go through the process of watching all the G1s and whatnot. And since I am sharing one laptop, it does get a little tricky to do that consistently because the previous laptop had died. So you have two content creators working on one laptop, and that is still a struggle. I can use my phone, but only so much. And it doesn't feel right to create content on my phone unless I'm doing like, either a YouTube short or this YouTube live stream, or doing something for Instagram where it's a reel or it's a story and me talking about stuff. I can only do but so much on my phone, that a laptop is required for the heavier edited versions of what you see. So like the tape study series, I have put out, a tape study episode talking about Drilla Maloney versus Gabe Kidd, and the video portion of that is on my Substack. If you guys don't know, I have a Substack. It is a free wrestling newsletter, marieshadows.substack.com. I'll leave that down in the description below. And so I have the video format on there. On Spotify, where you can find the Square Circle podcast on. And thank you guys for over 4,000 and like 790 plays and downloads, like all together. Well, all time is like 15,000, but like the amount of times people have came in to listen has risen the amount of listens on Spotify and like everywhere else. But thank you guys so much for tuning into the Square Circle podcast, where you get your podcasts is on. And if you are listening outside of Spotify, I know those podcasting platforms do not have a video format. Spotify has a video format. So you can watch the video format, you can watch for my reactions, you can watch for my pausing and whatnot, and it's all educational. It really is all educational. And so, when I upload those videos onto Spotify and they automatically go onto YouTube, you guys get the audio version. So not too many people, not too many numbers on those, because it becomes audio, it doesn't become visual. If it was visual, it would have got struck down. But yes, marieshadows.substack.com is where you can watch the actual video and give me comments and, all that kind of stuff. Because, most wrestling fans are like, I'm here for the graps. The graps. Oh my God, the graps. Guys, just say you're here for the wrestling. No one uses the graps. No one does. No one uses that. So, yeah, if you want to see the graps, marieshadows.substack.com, or go on Spotify to watch the video, because now Spotify allows video formatting, and also they allow comments. You could also leave comments there. So I have been just in the background a little bit of regrowing the Instagram to the way that I want it. to the way that sort of draws the lines, because when you've been burnt so many times in the past by creating spaces, people to join and whatnot, you know, it creates this thing of like, who can you really trust on the internet? If you don't know these people personally, if they're not like within traveling distance of this or that. So basically, I try my best to be like, listen, you gotta, if you want to join, it's just to be open-minded, just to be like objective, rather than subjective, and don't try to control something that is not yours. And we'll get into that with the live stream chat etiquette. But yeah, so marieshadows.scp over at Instagram. That's where I'm trying to grow, and definitely I've been trying to redefine and reimagine what the tape study series looks like, because ultimately I don't want a wrestler passing by thinking I'm just a fan, when this is way more deeper than that. I used to work for WWE. Now I'm doing podcasting. I did commentary on the indies for Goddesses of War Wrestling, and I created a wrestling planner, and I work freelancing for MOW as well, interviews and all that kind of stuff. This is way more than just being a fan and whatnot. So I'm not on podcasting to be like, this sucked. No, I'm on podcasting to basically tell you what it is, be as real as I can, be as truthful as I can, and basically, if there's any weaknesses when I break down professional wrestling matches, to talk about it and to be like, hey, let's try to improve this, or let's try to hide this for something else later, because they say in professional wrestling that timing is everything, and timing is everything. And so, thinking about what I want to do for tape study and how I want to elevate that, and I want to turn that into a business, and want to turn that into me helping the younger wrestlers here as a way to give back to the wrestling community, and as a way to give back to the wrestling industry, because I really do love this industry, whether my haters want to believe it or not, because, I've had plentiful of haters over the years. But with the tape study series, it's focusing on wrestlers and getting wrestlers to be better than they were yesterday, because professional wrestling is a game where you don't stop learning. You really don't stop learning. The day that you stop learning is the day that you don't want to adapt in a business that is rapidly adapting, because it's rapidly adapting to social media. It's rapidly adapting to, I should say, the vacuum of social media, because a lot of people on Twitter will use their loud voices, even though there's like maybe a handful or like at least 1% will use their loud voices. And then people who react emotionally to them will amplify those voices to make it seem larger than what they are, and they really are not as loud as you think they are. But those are the people that end up getting all the activity, engagement, and negativity. The ones who do constructive criticism get the negativity from the people that don't want constructive criticism. But then again, the internet has convinced people that do not believe definitions, go based on emotion, and basically tell others that they're wrong no matter what. And we can't have that. We really, really can't have that. We need to go back to at least the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, where we could have like a physical book of definitions, and have the correct definitions, and not no definitions that have a little bit of a whataboutism. No definitions that have any kind of woke language. No definitions that have any liberal definitions or language. None of that. Because you can't tell me that like over the years this word is going to change because a certain subsection of people that finally got attention needs it to be changed to fit them so they can feel accepted. That doesn't work that way. Why do we fucking allow that shit? Like, we should not even do that. That even goes for like the wrestling community too. The way that like certain things are talked about and whatnot. And then, sometimes in the back of my mind, it goes back to someone telling me that all I do is talk about political stuff. And obviously, no, this is not going to be a political thing, but it might be, I don't know, whatever it is. But I am just going to talk my shit. That it wouldn't be political if we didn't have young people entering the wrestling business and looking at the wrestling business through a racial lens all the time. And that goes for life too. That goes for life in general, where people just walk around looking at things through a racial lens and waking up and being like, how can I be a problem today while also trying to be a hero today? And that shit does not work. Like, that bullshit does not work. And we saw like the ramp up of like, you know, racial shit on Twitter and wrestling, and it like permeated through, and nobody wants to push back against it because they don't want to be labeled anything. And it's like I said before on my Instagram, when someone tried to again go after my character, and that's what they do first. They go after your character so you can be scared and guilty and be in your box and let them win. And you can't let them do that at all. You cannot let people destroy your character when they don't know anything about you, because the bots will get it wrong. The bots will get it wrong way faster than someone that like actually knows you. Someone that actually knows you, like an actual little friend, will be able to break your character first than like a bot. A bot is just going to be a bot. But you cannot let those people continue to do that. And I say all this because, you know, we shouldn't be having these conversations in a way where it leads to unnecessary arguments. We shouldn't try to be looking through things through like particular lens, and trying to be like, oh, well, you know, we gotta say it this way, we gotta say it that way. Now, what was the original point that I was trying to get at? Besides, I guess I was like a little sidetracking. But yeah. Oh, the tape study thing. We could go back to that. That the tape study series that I was thinking of, right? Everybody knows that it's my favorite thing to do. It's me watching wrestling with you guys and breaking down wrestling matches. And I did take, you know, some fan requests. I did do the last one as a fan request to look at the tag team match of Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura versus Taichi and Ishii in New Japan Pro Wrestling, because the buddy had asked me my opinion on it, because Uncle Dave was like, 5 stars, this is match of the year, great tag team match. So I decided to break that down, and, you know, lo and behold, the buddy agreed with me, you know, how I was explaining it, because, you know, there was a difference of style in that match. If you guys go back and like watch it, if you're on marieshadows.substack.com, or if you're on anything else like Spotify, that match had 2 different ideologies working in that match. When wrestlers have a match, the storytelling should be there. The storytelling like should be front and center, where you understand what's happening, and everybody should be on the same page when it comes to this match. There shouldn't be the old school mentality between Ishii and Shota Umino, and Shota Umino trying very hard to impress Ishii and trying to get that stamp of approval. Like, Shota doesn't need to do that shit at all. And then the, I guess, new school, even though I wouldn't consider Taichi to sort of do like new school stuff, but Taichi doesn't really fit into a box. Taichi just did whatever the hell he wanted to do in wrestling matches, but it made sense. So I was just like, all right, cool. I can't really like falter. I can't put at fault to Taichi. However, whenever Taichi and Yuya Uemura got into the ring, you could tell that there was a difference of style. So we had 2 competing ideologies in that match, and that's what I broke it down with, because most of the time people are just fans of a wrestling match, and they will call everything and anything a banger. This is a banger. Oh my God, guys, you gotta watch this match because this is a certified banger. This is like, why is every match a banger? Even when you can clearly see that some matches are not up to standard and other matches are up to standard. How is every match a certified banger? This happens with AEW content creators, okay? With AEW content creators, this is what happens. They end up getting into this vacuum of like, everything has to be nice and pretty, everything has to be agreed upon, and nobody could say different, and I'm gonna let you know that this match was a banger. When clearly some wrestlers need some work. But no, AEW wrestling content creators want everything to be like, this is great, this is fantastic, awesome, awesome, awesome. So yeah, as I was, in the background, just working on Instagram, marieshadows.scp, I was thinking about how can I change up tape study. And I decided that because I am so passionate about helping out professional wrestlers and helping them increase their, work, their matches, their stories, I decided to do like Tape Study 2.0, which is now, gonna have a longer name, which is the Post Wrestling School Tape Study for wrestlers. Because after a wrestler graduates wrestling school, what are they gonna do? They go out, they get the bookings, they get the reps under their belt. But is anyone really looking at their match if that person is not busy? Are they really going to go back to the school that they graduate to just do some reps and get some training in that most young professional wrestlers out here today that are grinding on the indies don't fucking do, and they don't show it on social media? And I'm here to tell you that you need to show it. You need to show it. If you do not have a fan base going into your first like 3 matches that you're booked, you got to use social media to your advantage. You got to either like tweet it out, be on Instagram. TikTok is super liberal and one-sided, and TikTok may help, but if you're not converting your TikTok followers or your Instagram followers or your Twitter followers or your Discord followers or, your community followers, if you're not converting them to go buy a ticket when you are in their hometown, then you're not telling the promoters that you can't do a return on investment on you. Because you got to remember that the promoters are booking you because they either like what they see on social media, they like your style, your charisma, your matches, the way you hold yourself, your work ethic, or sometimes it could just be like word of mouth, or sometimes it could be like you working ring crew and they like how you do stuff, so they're probably gonna book you and whatnot. But it is also your job and your obligation to somehow have your fans in your community buy a ticket. And these tickets are not $1,000, $600. These tickets are like, 20 the most, 15 the least. Like when you go to your local wrestling promotion, you are not paying an arm and a leg like you would go to like WWE or go to like an AEW and whatnot. If you go to a local wrestling promotion, you believe in the wrestler that you've been following, that's a very good thing. Because now the wrestler can turn around and be like, hey, this is what I can bring. These are how many people I could bring. And then you could do a nice little meet and greet. You could take pictures for free. And they could put on their social media and they could talk about you. And that's how you get hyped up. That's how you end up building a following. But don't let that following go to your head. And I hope that wrestlers see this part. But don't let that following go to your head. Know that the support is there, but you still have to go to like a wrestling school or somewhere to get your reps in, so that way you don't fall behind on that. So that's why I came up with the Post Wrestling School Tape Study for wrestlers. Because again, your biggest mentor could be super, super busy, and I have all the time in the world. So, one second. Your biggest, okay. Your biggest, oh my God. Too many notifications right now. Sometimes the biggest hurdle is like trying to get someone to watch your wrestling tape, which I'm right here, Marie Shadows. I could definitely watch it. I could definitely give you handwritten notes, and I could give you a mini little video to accompany it so that you can understand the kind of notes that I write and expand upon it, because, notes are notes, right? But if I expand on it, it'd be better for you to learn from it and whatnot. But I do think that the professional wrestlers today are not doing enough to get noticed, and then they put out frustration cries, which is not a bad thing, but at the same time, it's like you're not doing enough to get your name out there while you're watching everyone else get out there. And you could say that it's because of this obstacle, that obstacle, insert, something racist here that like stops somebody, or like an obstacle that stops somebody. The only person that can like stop you from your dreams is you. That's it. You're standing right in front of yourself. If you want to go do something, go do something. You don't always need the approval of a community. You don't always need the approval of your friends. You don't always need the approval of somebody else. If you want to go and make like the next 6 months the best months that you can possibly do, with everything else that is around you, go do what you got to go do. Go reach out to promoters that you want to go work with. Go reach out to other wrestlers to collab with them on like, TikTok dances or Instagram, reels and whatnot, and make the content that you want to make. Not what you see your best friend do, but go out there and make the content that you want to make. Just don't be fucking corny about it or stupid about it. But like, make sure it makes sense and is logical and is like a little over 30 seconds, because you really can't do anything in 30 seconds unless like, you show, I don't know, the ending of like you and this person playing the game, and then like after that you turn to them and you be like, well, I beat you, bitch, kind of deal. Like, that's the only stupid thing that I'll be like, all right, cool, fine, whatever. But nothing like saying your name, doing your gesture, and being at a car. Like, well, what is that supposed to do, right? So the tape study got changed into like tape study 2.0, along with me just calling it the post wrestling school for tape study for professional wrestlers out there on the indies who are grinding, who might need a second pair of eyes on their matches and their promos to break it down. I have a whole entire playlist now on Spotify dedicated to all of my tape studies that I have done. It's not all of them, because they, most of them were done live on Twitch, like during the pandemic, and that was pretty fun. But I do want to bring back where it's like viewer suggested and like wrestler suggested and whatnot, if I want to do it live. But currently right now, the post wrestling school for tape study for wrestlers lives on buymeacoffee.com, because you get the best of both worlds, where if someone just enjoys my work and enjoys the things that I say and how I break down stuff, you could just leave a tip. Or if you want to take the extra step, there is a just one-off product to try out the services. And then there's the monthly commitment if you want me to be your monthly coach. For that, just to break down your wrestling matches, your promos, and you get like, priority, and we'll have like a little community get together. Just know that the monthly memberships and or yearly memberships are just 4 people at a time, because I'm testing this out. I'm trying this out. I'm trying what I want to do, because it's a lot more fun to help out wrestlers that would use it to their advantage, that it's a resource to them. For some reason, when you build a community of wrestling fans tend to be selfish, in my opinion. Wrestling fans tend to be know-it-alls. Wrestling fans tend to be, it's not all wrestling fans, because when you create a community, you'll have a good group of people and whatnot, but then like all the bad apples come in and disrupt things and whatnot. When you try to create something that is positive, it's like, no, we gotta tear it down. And it's like, why do you gotta tear it down? Why do you have to tear it down? This is positive, but you want to call me negative. I don't get it. So post wrestling school tape study for wrestlers is available on buymeacoffee.com. All of the links will be down in the description below, and also in the comment section as well, of me just talking about this. But the last thing that not really the last thing, because I still have to get onto my live stream chat etiquette. But I'm just gonna, okay. So this is the hat that I made, which is called Marathon Over Sprint, because while I was rebuilding via marieshadows at SCP over at Instagram and everywhere else, I was just reflecting on 6.5 years of creating the Square Circle podcast and scaling it to where it is today. And looking back at me working for WWE, me looking back at being freelance help for MLW and being on the indies and doing commentary and, getting all these amazing opportunities to interview this wrestler, that wrestler, and talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling. And even, yes, reflecting on the haters, reflecting on, the group chats that I was once in and got away from, because I will never again be the token Latina in a liberal group chat. Never again. Never again doing that shit. But I learned patterns, and I think that it was just a learning experience. But marathon over sprint, basically, just thinking about it, is for everybody out there that, is not doing content creation as a hobby. And if they are doing it as a hobby, maybe one day they'll turn it into like full blown, like a job. But this is my life, this is my lifestyle, and this is a job for me. So it is a marathon over a sprint. There are other people in the wrestling fandom that sprint so fast that when they fall, they don't know what the fuck to do with themselves. And then there's people here in the wrestling fandom that end up sprinting, and they sprint because they attach themselves to other people's coattails, and then they destroy those people, and then they act like they don't know what happened when they destroyed those people. Or sometimes people destroy themselves, like imploding from the inside out when they have a group. When they talk about wrestling and whatnot, it's great for like a year and a half, and then all of a sudden, inside turmoil that you have nothing to do with end up coming to the surface and whatnot. So, it's a marathon over a sprint, and wow, it does feel like the most fastest thing ever, because wrestling moves pretty fast. Somebody is always first. Somebody is always second. Someone is always trying to knock down the person in first just to be the first one there. But most people cannot handle that type of spotlight. Most people cannot handle that kind of, pressure and whatnot, and they ultimately fall. And they ultimately pack up. There have been some other podcasters that, they say the life of a podcast is within 5 years and less. And some of them packed up, and some of them are like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore because of all the hate. I'm not doing this anymore because of this or that. They give themselves excuses. If you really wanted to do this, you will find a way to make time for this and tell any haters to fuck off. But it is way more easier to make excuses because no one has, it's a function within the brain to turn on, to basically move past fear and start jumping into the unknown. And when you jump into the unknown, you'll realize that it's not as scary as you once thought. I have been there so many times. There were times where I never overthought my content. Sometimes I think about my content way too much as like an overthinker, and then I get paralyzed to not do any content. But eventually I come out of it to do content. But that does not mean that I give up on it. I don't give up on it. I put the ideas away for a second. I do something else, and I switch my mind to coming back to do the work. Most people just dip out when they can't do the podcast because the podcast is not their number one priority. Everything else is taking priority. But you got to learn how to prioritize what really needs to be prioritized. And if you still have friend circles or family circles or acquaintance circles where they want your full attention, you got to tell them to fuck off if you really, really, really want to do this. It's a marathon and not a sprint. Some people, maybe get lucky over time. Or even overnight, depending on what happens. Sometimes if you talk to the right people, sometimes if you shake the right hands, sometimes if you kiss the right asses, you might end up getting that sprint. But then you fall because you don't know how to structure that sprint. That's why this hat, right, which is available down below. It's available down below in the tag products. You could get the shirt, you could get the hat, you could get the mug. I have the hat and the mug, but that's why I created the marathon over the sprint, because that's what it is. When you want to be a content creator, you have to at least have some type of maybe loose structure in the beginning of what you want your content to be, what you want people to perceive you as. And like, if you're playing a gimmick, like I could tell if you're playing a gimmick, but if you're not playing a gimmick, it's going to be maybe that much sweeter. You'll get a lot more hate. I don't know. But, you have to have maybe a loose structure if you want to survive in the content creation game, and even in the wrestling game, because people are going to come from every which way to try to tear you down no matter what. That's with everything for some odd fucking reason. I don't understand. They say that we got to elevate each other. They say we got to help each other out. They say that we got to build community. But the moment that you start challenging people, that's when they want to destroy your shit. And it's like, I guess you're not really that tolerant. But everything that you do is a marathon over a sprint. You have to have the structure in order to survive, because if you don't and you start running, you're going to fall and you're going to go to hit rock bottom. It's a marathon. That's why the Square Circle podcast has survived. That's why the tape study series has survived. That's why, me building elsewhere has survived. And I really thought that I needed Twitter to sort of stay there, and that's only because of I've been using Twitter for 12 years, and I understood the landscape that is Twitter. I understood the algorithm until it started changing, and then a lot more negativity came about. And when I say negativity, I don't necessarily mean what the woke people on Twitter consider constructive criticism as negativity, but actual true negativity for no reason. And then people will come in to try to put their liberal shit on you and whatnot. But to get it back to Twitter, I thought that that would be the way to go, to maintain the spot of this is who you know me as, and this is the content that I do. No, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because everyone on Twitter is competing in real time to have a voice, and nobody wants to listen to each other, and nobody wants to have good conversations. Everything is about I'm right. I don't care if you think not or different. And then people want to be tolerant, and then people want to tell you how to think, how to act, how to talk. And then people want to just hear themselves. People want to be selfish. Even if you're being nice to somebody wants to be selfish about it. Someone wants to make it about them and all victim and whatnot. And after a while, you start realizing that your ceiling on Twitter is capped. That's what I realized. Over that month and a half period or whatever it is. I should have wrote down all these dates and whatnot if I was going to talk about this. But I realized that my ceiling was capped, and I was the only one that had fucking common sense with certain shit. So then moving on from that has been a total game changer and amazing. And that's why I created this. That's why I started to watch JCW Lunacy a little bit more, to start from the beginning. And I wrote down notes in my notebook, and I used Instagram to create the reels to talk about, hey, this is what, 3 things that you can learn on JCW Lunacy. This is what you can learn from this wrestler. This is what you can learn from this and that. I do have the MLW, shows written down as notes, and eventually I'll get to them and talk to them, because what I want to do is talk about the show for MLW and pick out the standing match of that show and do a tape study review on it, where I'm breaking it down, education, and talking about this, talking about that. I do know that when they first came back for MLW Fusion, and we had Austin Aries versus Trevor Lee, that's a very good match to talk about and break down for professional wrestlers. That's what I want to do. I want to do more content that is more intentional for the community and for the wrestling industry and for the wrestlers themselves. Because if I'm not talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling at the moment, if I'm not talking about WWE, because everybody talks about WWE, I have to find another way to bring out the content. Because there's no stopping this content creation at all. There's no stopping this. I love professional wrestling way too much. I love professional wrestling to elevate themselves. Elevate themselves, elevate the industry, elevate the guys. Because I do think that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and part of me does feel like WWE needs to slow down a little bit with their professional wrestlers, especially all of the people that come in straight from like NXT that doesn't get enough time to grow and develop. But that's just me. I just feel like sometimes they rush call-ups, and it's like you need a little bit more time down there, because it's one thing to work an NXT crowd. It's another thing to work a live crowd that's different in every single city when you're on a Raw and a SmackDown. It's very different. But then again, if you listen to the Square Circle podcast or the Tape Study series, I do say over and over and over again, for any wrestlers out there that do listen to the Square Circle podcast, that you need to, when you understand your audience, when you're traveling town to town to town for the promotions that you're booked for, and you understand how to play that crowd, that's how you're going to get over. That's how you're going to get noticed. So if we apply that logic to Raw and SmackDown with like the early call-ups of some people from NXT, it's a little bit different because it's scaled a little bit more. So it's like, yeah, they have to follow a script, but also listen to the audience. And I would think that it would be very beneficial if, like, I don't know, they relay that to Triple H and, have a conversation about that and how they can incorporate something with the new wrestler and the crowd and creative and writing. Speaking of creative, there are a lot of trendy videos on YouTube that is annoying, to say the least. And I don't really watch it. I don't really watch other wrestling creators unless like I personally like know these people, or like I really do enjoy their takes and whatnot. Because most of the time, the trendy wrestling videos on YouTube tend to be the same talking points, tend to be the same script, tend to be like no original thought at all. It's either their thoughts or no thoughts at all. So anyway, there's this trend just that goes around where people are like, Triple H lied, and Hogan lies, and The Rock lies. There's this trend of like calling out these big people and saying that they are lying. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you make a claim that somebody is lying, you better bring the receipts. You better bring the facts. And those facts and those receipts cannot be from dirt sheets. That just invalidates you saying that this person lied, that person lied. There's also the trend too that whenever Triple H does an interview and whatnot, and he's speaking to the fans, and he wants you guys to just enjoy the wrestling, that's because the nastiest of the nastiest fans, and I can like guarantee this is what it is, the nastiest of the nastiest fans, or supposed fans, or the bots on Twitter, get so amplified that those talking points get put on all the dirt sheets that you guys read. All the dirt sheets that you're like, hey guys, we are a wrestling podcast and we're here to talk about the wrestling news. And this dirt sheet person wrote blah, 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 and we're here to talk about it. Or this dirt sheet person is letting you know that these wrestlers have their contracts coming up. Which, by the way, dirt sheet people are not supposed to know when contracts are supposed to come up. Like, miss me with that fucking bullshit. There's a difference between like an interviewer, like trying to do some digging and trying to ask the person directly, like when their contract is up or whatever. But dirt sheet people should not be talking to the PR person to be like, hey, when is your client's contract up? That's like, that goes against the code of fucking ethics. No one needs to know when someone's contract is up unless the wrestler wants to know or the PR person themselves put it out. And if the PR person themselves put it out and the dirt sheet wants to take credit for that, you guys don't do enough calling out. You guys don't do enough like, yo, we got to get this person out of here of the wrestling fandom. But yeah, I'm just going to let you know that like reciting regurgitated most of the time bullshit from dirt sheet writers is basically not helping your brand. It really isn't. If you're not going to add a different perspective, if you're not going to add something that you know about the particular news story that like you are covering from a dirt sheet, don't do it. Just don't do it. Let the dirt sheets die at the side of the road. Let them die at the side of the road because they're not helping the wrestling community. They do a lot more damage than good. And then to sort of allow it to happen on your show because you want to talk about the news and whatnot. No, like, no, it's none of my business. Whatever they want to do with it. But to get back to the point of, I guarantee you that it is the little vocal voices on Twitter that have something to say 24/7, and it gets picked up and then it gets put on the dirt sheets as if like these are the talking points that miraculously came out of nowhere when we know I know exactly where they come from. I don't know where you think they come from, but the dirt sheets do this, and every other news outlet does this. They go on social media and they take the talking points, whatever is trendy that day, and they try to make it a talking points. So Triple H is not talking to the wrestling fans that are giving constructive criticism and valid frustrations for what they see from the product. But then again, I do have to let you guys know that before TKO, that most of this stuff was still happening regardless, but with TKO joining, it does seem like a little bit more heavier. And it's, when you put two and two together, when you put patterns together, it's sort of like, is it, but we don't really know the truth because we are not there. The dirt sheets are not behind the curtain. The dirt sheets end up texting the disgruntled, loyal grunt that's in WWE to get their talking points from. I hope you guys know that, right? Like they talk to the disgruntled people down at the bottom that are never going to climb the ladder in WWE. So that's how we get this whole division and whatnot. But I guarantee you that Triple H is not talking about you if you are giving constructive criticism to their product. When Triple H is telling fans to just enjoy the show, it's everybody that's on Twitter that got amplified, and the dirt sheets are gonna run with it as if like those are the talking points that they got from somewhere else, but no, they got it from Twitter. But here's the thing, no one calls it out in its community as far as I've seen. So I will call it out because I've been calling it out, and I've said it before that the dirt sheets look at what's happening on Twitter, look at what's happening on social media, especially in their comment section, and they take the most engaging comments and they put it up as if like they fucking like this is ooh allergies. They put it up as if like nothing happened. I should be good. Allergies, talking, not having enough water. And then like having dryness and whatever go down the wrong way, I guess. Okay, so last thing on the Triple H thing. I need people to understand that it's not like, because it's way easier to complain. And people who complain end up wanting others to always be positive like they are, but they're complaining. Like, get some new talking points. Don't always be like, this person is lying, that person is lying, just to get your clicks, just to get your, views and whatnot. Like, you don't know that. You're not behind the scenes to know they're truly lying. And then if you want to use WWE Unreal to sort of be like, oh, this is my source as to why and how Triple H is lying. So yeah, if you're trying to use WWE Unreal as like your main source of like, oh my God, I'm so right, he lied about this and look at this and look at that, take WWE Unreal with a grain of salt, because it is no different than a Total Divas episode. It's no different. It's scripted. It's basically, them talking about behind the scenes. In my opinion, it does sort of expose a lot. But it is what it is. But it's also to try and quiet everybody else, and then also talk about the product to get more eyes on it. And if people understand how things are done, maybe there could be a more understanding. Because for some reason, nobody wants to understand anything other than like their side. Nobody wants to understand you for some odd reason. But yeah, that's my take on like, all these videos that pop up on my YouTube about like, Triple H lied, this person lied, this is a liar, like, grow up. I understand that drama gets like clicks because I'm about to talk about some drama in like in a couple of seconds. But, grow the fuck up. Talk about like the wrestling product. Talk about how wrestlers can improve. Talk about how like the story could improve. Do some fantasy booking. I understand that on social media, the negativity gets clicks. The drama gets clicks. The out of this world bullshit gets clicks. I totally understand that. But if you want to be true to yourself and be authentic and get an authentic community behind you, just talk about the fucking wrestling. Talk about what you don't like. Talk about like, hey, maybe they would have done this. Maybe they would have done that. Maybe if you want to say something predictable, but most of the time people want to be like, oh no, I have to talk about this because of the drama. I have to talk about this because of the views. You'll still get views if you talk about things in a very authentic way. You will. If you don't like the build to like CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, even though that happened yesterday at like SummerSlam, but if you don't like the build to it, what would you have done differently? What would you suggest? Do you think that, how would you have Cody turn heel? If you know Cody Rhodes' whole entire career, from like WWE to going to Ring of Honor, going to New Japan Pro Wrestling, being a part of Bullet Club, and then doing the sort of little invasion thing where he got people to, go to WWE right outside, the AEW stuff. Like, if you know his whole entire career, what logically would you have him do to turn heel if that is what you want? Rather than trying to create a video where it is Triple H lied. Triple H ain't doing what he needs to do. And then for people that name call Triple H, can you guys stop? Because you wouldn't want to be name called. You guys are the same people that will be like, no, we got to tolerate. You got to tolerate me. You have to address me by whatever pronoun I'm feeling today, which I'm going into like maybe dangerous territory, but like whatever. But like, you know, these are the same people that will be like, you know, address me as this, but have no problem being a bully to someone they know that they will not defend themselves, aka Triple H, because he does not give a shit, which he obviously shouldn't give a shit. But like, why the fuck are you guys calling him all sorts of names in the book and think it's okay? But yet then you'll turn around and try to tell someone, you know, oh, you're being racist, you're being a Nazi, you're being this, you're being that, while you're actively calling him, you know, Triple K and Big Nose and he lied and, you know, all this kind of stuff, trying to clown him. It's sad that we allow people to show us one way and you guys are like, oh my God, have some empathy. Oh my God, how, like, bullying is not okay. Cyberbullying is not okay. And you go and cyberbully Triple H just so that people can like click on your video while trying to call someone a Nazi if they're not going to affirm how the fuck you feel today. Anyway, I just don't like when people want to force you into their fucking delusions, but then call out a person who has a really tough job in being a booker and being a writer, aka Triple H. Will call them all sorts of names in the book because they didn't like how whatever the fuck, but then also try to, I don't know, get some participation trophy and like some brownie points by defending somebody that did not need their defending. Anyway, so earlier in the stream I said that these things didn't work, right? I did not remove the tape underneath their prongs, so I guess I'm going to have to try this a little bit later when I go on Instagram and whatnot. These are the Bluetooth little mini microphones that I could have used, so that way you don't hear anything in the background. That's why I'm a little like talking above my volume because of that. So let's talk about a little bit of drama, right? While I'm, you know, still a little bit heated. And I was, you know, thinking about, you know, maybe I shouldn't, but, you know, I call people out. I called out this person all yesterday during a live stream. And while this is a general talking about live stream chat etiquette, it is going to be geared towards one person. Because if we don't start calling out the bullshitters, if we don't start calling out the people that end up making it bad for everybody else, they're gonna keep doing it. They're not gonna learn from it, and they think that everyone is gonna be a pushover. And then the last thing that you want in your live stream chat is to have another person that's gonna do the exact same thing as that person, and there's no way to fucking control it, because there is strength in numbers when people want to be assholes. But then people within the chat don't want to call him out, don't want to push back on him and whatnot. Especially when he's been told every single week to stop arguing with people, to stop being an asshole. But he does not want to listen because the boss has not spoken. And I noticed this pattern because, again, I was part of a liberal group chat. And when you're part of a liberal group chat as a token Latina and you just observe, you see what the fuck happens. And if you happen to be a woke white liberal, whether you are male or female, you don't like what I'm about to say, you know, maybe this isn't for you, but if you want to learn something, you know, you can continue to watch me live, or you can, you know, scroll on ahead or whatever it is. But this is the playbook of what a woke white liberal does, and I do hate using labels. I really do. I really hate using labels, but you have to understand where I am coming from with this. So I have been collaborating and chatting and, you know, basically prompting up the Sports Jedi Network. And I love them. They have built a fantastic community. They have been putting in the hard work. They review almost every single wrestling show that's out there. They've been adding more people to their network. They still want to add me. Eventually, we'll see what happens. But I love what they do. I love their work ethic, and they are building something amazing. They, like I said, they added more people to their network. You get MLW as well. You get the Garden of Thought. You get uh, PUWF, or is it PWUF? Who talk about Evolve, who were probably the first podcasters to talk about WWE Evolve. Don't believe anybody else because they started on Wrestling Soup. And you get like a bunch of cool programs and whatnot. I like to be on there as a panelist, and talk about professional wrestling. And talk to them about New Japan Pro Wrestling and just give them some thing. Like I was on there with them with the Forbidden Door stuff. So now that you know who they are, right? So, everybody knows Aaron loves wrestling. And, the reason why I would name drop him is because there's not enough people, or maybe there is, and I don't see it because I'm not on Twitter and I don't cry like a baby. But in the chat, there isn't enough people to call him out on his bullshit. I will call him out on his bullshit because a woke white liberal has this playbook of looking at the power dynamics of a group like the Sports Jedi Network, where you have the boss, the weakest link, and then I don't want this to sound anything out of context, but you have the other. I'm so sorry. And I will explain everything in detail, okay? But this is how we have to look at it. A woke white liberal knows that someone who is strong in energy will tell them to fuck off. That's why Aaron complains so much about JD from New York, especially when he's in someone else's chat. It happened last week. And I was like, bro, stop talking about New Yorkers. You don't know New Yorkers. And, this dude will tell you straight to your face to fuck off because he does not care. And that's not me trying to defend JD for fucking everything. But seriously, if you don't know somebody, you don't talk shit about them in someone else's chat, when a live stream chat should be the most neutral base ever for any conversation to go down, whether you're talking about wrestling, anime, movies, looking at some YouTube slop or whatever. The chat is supposed to be the most neutral base, where we don't have to play 21 questions, where we don't have to play politics, where we don't have to play, delusion fucking games. You're there to listen to the host and the creator of the show that you want to support. You have all the right to chat within that chat, but not to try to control that chat, not try to argue with the co-host, because guess what? You are a viewer. You're not up there on the panel. You're up there, you're down in as a viewer. So you respect the chat, you respect the host, you respect the co-host, the two of them. So, before I get any further, so yes, he would, talk shit about JD. But like I said, a woke white liberal, and this goes for, it doesn't have to be white, because there are black liberals out there too that jump into the whole wokeness and shit like that. It's annoying. It's annoying because no one asked you for your superiority. No one did. And I don't play that shit because I do see people on an even playing field depending on what it is. Okay? Especially when it comes to content creation and people who come into the chat. Again, I will not do 21 questions with you. I will acknowledge your name. I will acknowledge who you are. And if you come back again, I will probably remember a nice little quirkiness about you. I remember you as your name. I do not remember you as whatever the fuck you want to feel that day. Because I feel like your name is valuable. You coming into the chat to listen to me is valuable more than what you want to identify as. On the internet, you could be whatever you want. You could be a bot. You could not be a bot. You could be a person, not a real person, and all this stuff. Hey, idea maker. Thank you, man. Thank you for joining the chat. And definitely, yep, straight up fire. I'm sorry for the closed camera. But yo, thank you for joining the chat, man. Thank you. So let me get on with this. So again, I would not play 21 questions with you if you ever come into my comment section or anything like that. The moment that you decide to disrespect me is the moment that you're going to get treated as such, okay? Just to put that out there. I'm not here, no more safe spaces, none of that, dude. None of that. Anyway, so a woke white liberal like Aaron Loves Wrestling will look at the power dynamics. And if you know Kev is the boss. Like, I would not disrespect that dude. Like, I would make that dude food. I would have that dude, like, come over to my house. Like, that dude is fucking awesome. But Kev is the boss. Then you have Chris. I love Chris. Chris is a lot more smarter than people, like, make it out to seem that he is. But in Aaron's mind, Chris is the weakest link. Just because Chris argues with Aaron. And I'm like, bro, you got to stop arguing with someone that wants the attention. If you didn't give him the attention, like 10 minutes into this conversation. But anyway, I have to tell you the power dynamics before I get into what happened yesterday. And this is just educational purposes. And the third person on that panel is Haas. Haas is a black guy. There's no walking around on that. He's an awesome freaking black guy. Okay? He has a lot of great opinions, and he be saying some stuff where I'm like, oh, no comment, no comment. That's common sense, man. That's common sense. So whenever a woke white liberal sees a black guy that has joined up with two Hispanics, he automatically treats them different. And I saw this yesterday in the group chat. Well, in the live stream chat, right? Which is unfair. You guys have to stop doing this thing where, like, you give special treatment to people who are darker than others or even lighter than others. Like, you guys gotta stop doing that. You guys really, really gotta stop doing that. Because nobody should be above anybody else. If you say that we are all one race, the human race, why does someone have to get special treatment? And I'll point this out in a follow-up example, so that way we don't have to wait for the example a little bit later on. There was something in chat that Haas has said before he joined the panel, and he said something, and here comes Aaron to be like, "That's a good point, Haas." Anything that Haas says, it's a good point. Anything that, when Haas came up to the panel, he'd be like, oh, welcome, Haas. But if I, in chat, were to say something equally as a good point as Haas, and I'm not trying to compete, I'm trying to give you guys a perspective here, because we also have to go over definitions, because Aaron doesn't know shit about definitions. If I give the same perspective as Haas, just maybe worded different, a different topic or whatever, I wouldn't get, oh, that's a good point. I'll get ignored, because woke white liberal people ignore the women, and they don't like strong women. And I really don't like using this. I really don't. But they don't like women who will come for them and call them out in their bullshit. So that's an example of, like, playing it and the dynamics. I will say now that Chris is not the weakest link, but in a woke white liberal mind, Chris is the weakest link. In Aaron's mind, he is the weakest link. So here's what happened, right? And of course, if you don't know, on Twitter, they go back and forth. Chris and Aaron Loves Wrestling goes back and forth because Aaron Loves Wrestling wants everybody to be kumbaya. He wants everyone to be like, you gotta say that wrestling is awesome. You gotta say that the women wrestlers are great, that you can't construct or criticize. And then he repeats things over and over to let people know in chat that no matter what, he's still going to be a fan of this wrestler. No matter what, he's going to be a fan of this wrestler. When nobody on the panel and nobody in chat, other than the other chatters and me, have not said, oh, if such and such wrestler loses, I'm no longer a fan of him. Why do you need to feel like you have to announce that you're still going to be a fan of a wrestler, win, lose, or draw, when the conversation have never touched that topic? You want to be the fucking savior. Anyway, so last time I would, usually just ditch out because it's not worth it, but someone had to put him in his place because I don't like the fact that Chris gets disrespected. I don't like that someone comes into chat to disrespect the middle child, let's say, and then back off when like the dad comes in and be like, oh no, I'm so sorry, oh no. Anyway, so here's what happened, right? And again, this is educational purposes, this is observation, this is perspective, and this is what the woke white liberal playbook is, other than power dynamics. So I thought we were going to have a pretty good live stream conversation. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up and talking about it because it's bothering me, because nobody else in that chat was pushing back against them except for me. And it's like, you guys got to start calling out this fucking bullshit. If we're going to be a community that uplifts the Sports Jedi Network in any way, shape, or form, you got to push back against people like Aaron, who wants to play the victim, but also try to incite arguments, and then try to do a agree to disagree. Like, you got to help out. I'm just saying. It can't just be me. I could be the bad guy. That's totally okay. But like, you are a community. While you're there to hear what the Sport Jedi Network has to say about the wrestling topics, you're there to also make sure that the chat is not trying to be divisive. Because again, the chat should be the most neutral grounds ever. And if it's not the neutral grounds, then like, what's the point of having a chat? What's the point of doing a live stream? Doing a live stream is to share your thoughts on things and have people come in and either have a conversation about it, but not try to control the conversation. I'll get to that in a second. I know I'm jumping around, but I could tell you right now, and I've said this before on the Square Circle podcast, with other drama-filled topics, that how you present yourself as a content creator, you are going to be inviting that same energy into your live chat. The Sports Jedi guys, my homies, do not exhibit what Aaron Loves Wrestling exhibits. They don't. So I don't understand why he's still around, other than trying to get on their coattails, other than trying to get the attention because someone finally gives him attention. And me personally, I'll be like, bro, you gotta fuck off. Okay, so here's what happened. So I thought we were going to have a really good chat because it started out really good. But then I started to notice that like in every single chat that he was putting into the chat, he kept having to like put a disclaimer on it by saying, in my opinion. So just think of like any phrase or statement and then end it with, in my opinion, in my opinion, in my opinion. And I was like, I wonder why Ideal Maker, it's okay, don't worry about it, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, but it's all good. I just don't like bullshit like this. I really don't. So in my mind, I was like, why would someone having to keep putting from maybe like 10 messages, in my opinion, in my opinion, in my opinion. And I was like, are you trying to start some shit? Because, normally it should also be established that when you say something, of course it's going to be in your opinion if you're not going to give a perspective. Like, I don't have to keep saying, in my opinion, I like green apples. Wow, I don't know. Idea Maker over here is talking about, something else that's like fruit related. I don't have to keep saying, well, in my opinion, I like green apples. I could just say, oh, cool. Oh, you like that fruit? Okay, I like green apples. Someone else is giving their opinion. I'm giving my opinion. I don't have to be like, oh, in my opinion, I like green apples. You guys can't get upset at me. Oh my God. It when you say in my opinion, it's not a shield. It is not a shield. Because sometimes people would take I can't say this because like I say it all the time that facts are not opinions, but sometimes people do this thing where they twist something and try to make it into an opinion to as a shield, and like you can't do that, bro. So he kept doing that, and I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Kind of weird you're doing, in my opinion. So I didn't say anything about that, but like when they came to the topic of about Mike Santana changing his name to Cruz Montana, right? You know, I don't read what's happening on Twitter, so I don't know what the back and forth is, right? But I do understand why people will be upset and why some people wouldn't care about Mike Santana changing his name. And the conversation came up about like, they didn't understand. I'm saying the panel didn't understand like why certain wrestlers could keep their actual name or their indie name versus like other people who had to change it and stuff like that. And most of them agree that they knew that Mike's name was going to get changed, right? But here comes Aaron Loves Wrestling to try to be like, I don't understand why people are complaining. Stop complaining. Like, we should just accept it. That stupid phrasing that someone wants to come in to be like, they should all just shut up and like take it and whatnot. It was basically an essence of that. And I jumped in because it was really freaking annoying that he would rather have people just accept it, even though he posed the question of he doesn't understand why people are complaining and whatnot. So I jumped in and I gave him perspective. I did not give him an opinion. I did not say, oh, I like the new name for Mike Santana. I have never said that because I honestly don't care. I don't care. So I'm not going to jump into the conversation to be like, I like the name. And if I do say that I like the name, that is me giving an opinion. No, what I did was give perspective and logic, the same way that a liberal person will tell you that you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes to understand why they're upset. I just did the liberal playbook for the past 15 fucking years to Aaron, who is a fucking liberal. He might be a liberal. He probably is. Because of the way that he was fucking acting. Come on. Anyway, I basically told him that, Mike Santana has a legendary name. Everybody knows Mike Santana. If you see him out on the street, you could point them out and be like, oh shit, that is Mike Santana. You know exactly what, he is. He's from Lucha Underground. You know where he's at. You follow his whole career, right? So it's understandable that a chunk of his fan base are not going to be happy with the name change. While the other side of the aisle, when you look at it, because he's dedicating it to his father, that is an honorable tribute. Where, if you want to get mad, you want to get mad. But if you don't want to get mad, that's totally fine too. But you can understand the differences. One name has a legacy that has, a profound legacy. And then the other one just has like, a new legacy to create in honor of his dad, which is very like honorable. But then I also explained to him too, and also to the panel, like indirectly, that Samoa Joe talked about this in an interview very, very, very long time ago, that Samoa Joe has a very, very good lawyer, and his lawyer managed to allow in the contract that will say that Samoa Joe can keep his name, right? Can keep his name. And some other wrestlers probably had done the same thing too. That like, when they talk to WWE and they're like, hey, I don't want to change my name. Here are my list of demands in the contract. And if legal can clear it and they're okay with the terms, they get to keep their indie name. So how does me explaining that end up being an opinion? How? That is a perspective. And this is what I do on the Square Circle podcast all the time whenever I used to go live. If I want to have these conversations, I want to have these conversations in a perspective way. Not so much in a very opinionated way, but the way that I probably come out, people think is very, very opinionated and whatnot. So he decided to be like, oh, well, that's your opinion. That's your opinion. That's your opinion. Fucking liberals do that shit, where they don't want to just acknowledge that they got some perspective and logic and facts thrown at them. And we can like Google it. We could Google that Samoa Joe interview where he said that his lawyer managed to allow him to keep his name. Or you can bring up any Chris Van Vliet interview where eventually the wrestler will be like, oh yeah, well, legal was like, yeah, you could keep your indie name. Oh, but no, it's an opinion. So, of course, because I'm a female, he wanted to agree to disagree. And I'm like, bro, what is there to agree to disagree? There isn't. And then I told him that he needs to learn some definitions. He needs to learn some words. Because it's not fair that if someone is going to push back on someone being fucking stupid, and if someone is going to just be like, guys, don't argue about Mike Santana's name change. You should all just accept it. You guys shouldn't be arguing about it. Just accept it. What happens if you're like me and you don't care about the name change and you want to like just explain why some things happen and some things don't happen? So yeah, that rubbed me the wrong fucking way because I'm giving you a perspective. I'm giving you logic. I'm not even saying I like the name, I don't like the name. I don't care. I just want to see Mike Santana / Cruz Montana on NXT. That's all I care. All I care is about seeing what he does. I do not care about the name change. It is fantastic that he decided to change his name to honor his father. Fantastic. More power to him. But when Aaron gets a little pressured into being like, bro, this is a perspective. You got to stop trying to change the chat to make everybody so positive. And he knows that every single week that the Sports Jedi Network ends up going live, they are positive, they are constructive. That's it. And they give a lot of context as to why they say the things that they say. But of course, when you have a woke white liberal that ends up misinterpreting things intentionally to start arguments, it has to be called out. It has to be called out. The other incident too that I did not like, that I had to jump in and really be like, bro, let me call this bullshit out, is when if you know that someone is sitting at their computer and they open up something and the blue light comes on their face, don't think dirty. They're looking at something and they do this thing where they say breaking news. So it's not even like, they're trying to get some wrestling news out their ass. So they do this thing of like breaking news. And the breaking news was that Mike Johnson had reported that the main event of SummerSlam Night 1 was going to be Oba versus Brock Lesnar in the cage match. All right, cool. And the person who reveals this news is Chris. Chris just made the statement. Chris just read the report. He got the notification, saw it on his laptop, and was like, breaking news, guys. Mike Johnson said that Oba and Brock are going to, close the show. That's it. He said a statement. Move the fuck on. No, here comes Aaron to be divisive because this is what, again, woke white liberal men and women do. They go after who they think is the weakest link. He thinks that Chris is the weakest link. And so what he does is try to say no and try to say that WWE.com has the match order list as if like WWE.com said that they are going to open the show. And obviously Chris was like, I just fact checked them on that. And then here comes the victim, you know, because he wants to be a victim for every little fucking thing. He goes and says that, you know, that fucking defensive shit of that he did not say, well, Aaron is telling Chris that he's not trying to say that Mike Johnson is incredible. He's just repeating what WWE.com has said. And I said, Aaron, do you not see what you're doing right now? You are trying to control the chat and you're playing the victim. Chris gave his statement. You can move on. But no, he wanted to start an argument with the co-host. If anyone is a co-host for me and I'm doing something live, nobody in chat is arguing with my co-host. I will stop that immediately, especially when it's not even like, you know, if you're giving a different perspective in chat about whatever the topic is, I will entertain it because it's a different perspective. But the moment that you have to tell the co-host, no, I'm going to go by WWE.com, when, you know, Chris is obviously looking at a computer screen, other than, you know, looking at the camera to be on this panel, and you're going to try to tell him no? You're going to try to clown him? You're going to try to discredit him? You're going to try to disrespect him? No, you're not going to do that. And the thing is that, like, not everyone has to follow, like, the kind of energy that I give out. Most people are passive nowadays. Most people will allow this shit to go. But seriously, the chat room needs to wake the fuck up. And also be like, Aaron, that was really fucked up. You don't go tell the co-host, you know, anything like that. And by the way, Aaron does really antagonize Chris. He really does. He does it in a very intellectually dishonest way, so he could be the victim. Stop being the victim. It's not 2020. You don't need to be the fucking victim. You need to be an adult. Anyway, so I jump in with that. Of course, nothing, deflecting, you know, denying, don't even want to, you know, acknowledge it. There was also another thing too that he does. It's like, oh, AEW is awesome. For me, AEW is 9 out of 10. AEW could do no wrong. Or whenever they talk about, or whenever the panel talks about TNA and whatnot, and, you know, can get a little nitpicky here and there. But then when they talk about, like, other wrestlers that they just don't see the potential in, they will give reasons why they don't see the potential in, but they want all the best for them. But then I did a little experiment where I said that Zia Brookside is small and she needs a character, the same way that Indy Hartwell needs a character. Most wrestlers need a character in order to survive, because if we are going to continue to talk about professional wrestling and continue to talk about the matches and not just say that this match was a banger, I need to tell my audience about this wrestler. You know, I need to tell my audience about this wrestler so that way they can understand their character, their motivation, what they're like, you know, so that way they could be like, yeah, I'm a fan. I'm going to go buy a ticket. I'm going to go support them at TNA. But if all you do is like, oh my God, I'm so happy for her. You ain't happy for shit. You ain't happy for them. Stop lying. Liberals are never happy for someone else. They are never happy for someone else. I have been there. Luckily I'm no longer in no liberal group chats, but they're not happy for no one else unless like they have a darker skin color. That's about it. It's all a fucking scam. It really is. And I have no idea if, like, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen with this live stream. But it's a fucking scam. So yeah. So during that conversation about like the women and whatnot, so I did a little experiment here to say that, you know, Zia is small and you know, she needs a character. Here comes Aaron to the rescue because he's a white knight, because, you know, you can't talk about women, and me being a woman, I think I could talk about women. Will be like, you know, Zia's awesome. Or, his other comment about like, Thea Hill is awesome and I'm happy for Indy. Dude, you guys gotta stop this whole shit of like, I'm happy for her, I'm happy for him. No, you're not. And by the way, by you saying that you're happy for someone, it's not even in a genuine way. You don't have to showcase your I don't know, bucket list of like, you have to check it off a checklist to be like, I told this person I was happy, I told that person I was happy, like, oh my god, I ran into this person, I told them I was happy for them and I don't even know them. I just want to spread some positivity. That's some toxic positivity bullshit, bro. Like, you can't always be happy for someone you don't know them. Now, you could give somebody a true compliment if you're seeing someone down the street and you're like, damn, you're beautiful. That's cool. But for everybody, like, will you tell someone that's like really overweight that they're happy for them? Would you tell someone that has stolen from you that you're happy for them? Would you have told someone if like they did you dirty? Oh, I'm happy for them. Would you tell a heel wrestler that you're happy for them? We gotta stop this fucking bullshit of like, oh my god, girl, I'm so happy for you. Oh my god, man, I'm so happy for you. That's fucking bullshit. You don't even know them. They're not even going to go to your house or your cookout or whatever. You're not going to remember them. You're not going to care about them when the camera is off and you're doing your own thing and you're not on social media and whatnot. You're not going to remember these fucking wrestlers. So like, let's like stop the fucking bullshit. What else happened? I did like the three main things. I also did have to remind people that to be respectful in chat. Be respectful in chat. It got to a point where like even Chris was frustrated and again had to call him out. Had to call him out during the live stream or whatnot. And then the fucking stupid little bullshit, because like if I see bullshit, I'm gonna call it out, right? Cause there's just the other thing too of thinking that Trey Miguel is no longer with TNA because he took a lot of bookings, and instead of doing research or even asking the questions of like, hey guys, did you see any news on Trey Miguel leaving TNA? Again, Chris fact checked Aaron. Aaron doesn't like that. Aaron wants control. Aaron should not have control of someone else's live stream chat because it's not his show. He has his own show. If he wants control, he could be on his own show. Simple. So Chris corrects him on that, right? And by the way, I needed an outlet to fucking talk about this because these discussions don't get talked about enough, and then people keep on doing it. And people, if you allow somebody to keep on doing this bad behavior, they're gonna get somebody else, and 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 they're gonna know that it is okay to do that shit in someone else's chat without any repercussions, without any kickouts, without any bans, without any timeouts. And no, you're not going to destroy a good ass fucking group like Sports Jedi Network. Not on my watch. This is how I back up my homies, I guess. Because way too many times I've seen this fucking shit happen. Anyway. And if we don't talk about it, how the fuck we gonna learn from it too? So, what was it? So he comes in saying that, Trey Miguel, left TNA because he was taking a lot more indie bookings. And he was really pushing that as as if it's like fact. So I don't know anything about it, but Chris knew something about it. And Chris was like, Trey Miguel, signed, a couple weeks ago. He re-signed with the company. And then again, Aaron wanted to argue with Chris about it. Aaron wanted to argue with Chris about it. Even though I called him out previously for doing that fucking shit. It took the boss to be Aaron's daddy for Aaron to back the fuck off of Chris and try to be like, oh, sorry, it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding. It's you wanting to have control of the chat. It's you wanting to make Chris look like a crazy person, so that way eventually you or somebody else will tell the world, Chris's character is this and this, when it's not. Liberals like to break down people on their character. It happens all the time. It happens to me. And it happens to a lot of people out there, and I know that you guys can relate to it. And that's something that we got to stop. That's something that we have to be like, bro, you got to stop doing this. Because now you are intentionally trying to make the co-host look like shit. And now you are intentionally trying to derail a show week after week after week. Like I said, you have your own show. Go do that to your show. Don't do that to anyone else's show. Don't do it. Stop it. And by the way, he's more than happy to come in to my chat if he wants to say some shit. But, it's probably not going to happen. And who knows? He probably might leave a comment on the VOD. But you don't intentionally try to break up a conversation. So that way the boss needs to come in and tell you, hey, and now you're gonna listen to Daddy Kev. I did want to jump in and be like, nah, man, you did not misunderstand anything. If you are in the same line of fandom as myself, the Sports Jedi Network, all the other wrestling content creators, we all look at social media and we all look at the headlines and we all speculate about, like, did this person leave? Why is this person taking so many, bookings? You should know, as a content creator and as a wrestling content creator, that TNA wrestlers have the ability to take as many bookings as they want. The only difference now is that they cannot be on a promotion that has AEW wrestlers. He should know this, but no, he wants to get under Chris's skin. And that to me is fucking disrespectful. So again, he stopped. He stopped once Daddy Kev came out. I would have been like, bro, get the fuck out of the chat. Get the fuck out of the chat. Eventually he left. But then I said that, hey, don't trigger him because he's going to just argue, and we're playing into his attention feed because he wants the attention. I already knew this. I already know that, because even in that chat, I was like, bro, you're trying too hard to be a fucking troll. You're trying too hard to get attention. You're trying too hard to be like, I'll do the AAA show with you, Kev. You come into chat to berate the co-host, and then you don't argue with the daddy, but you think that you can contribute and have some value to give to AAA. No, absolutely not. Obviously it's not my call, but like absolutely not. And I noticed that too. I noticed the dynamic that, like, once Daddy Kev came on the scene, he did not want to argue with Daddy Kev, but he'll argue with the weakest link, because this is what liberal people do. Liberal people will find the weakest link. And again, I will say this, that Chris has a lot more integrity. Chris sometimes I don't want to say a lot more patience, but Chris is really good at, like, ignoring. But then again, when you don't give Aaron Loves Wrestling enough attention, this is what happens. And eventually, he left because he couldn't get his way, because he had me to call out his bullshit. I would have liked it if the other people in the chat would have backed me up, but I'm asking for too much. I really am. I could always handle myself. I could always clap back at people if I need to. It's the New Yorker in me, and it's me standing up for what I believe in, and, doing this on behalf of the Sports Jedi Network. They really don't know that I'm talking about this, but we got to talk about this in a general sense as well, and call out the people that make other people's chat a living nightmare. Because as soon as he left, oh my God, they were so much at ease. because nobody wants you there, bro. Nobody wants you there. Every single time they talk about AEW, Aaron has to come over here to defend. And eventually, Haas and Chris are going to sound like, repeating themselves on loop rather than trying to find a solution to what could possibly be better about AEW. Aaron doesn't want conversations about professional wrestling. Aaron just wants to argue. And if you're a woman, you get ignored. And if you happen to be black, you get praised. If you happen to be the weakest link, you get an argument. And if you happen to be the boss and the daddy, oh, he backs off. I've seen this way too many times. I've experienced this way too many times. Really, man. Try to find a different playbook. Try to be as authentic. And by the way, if you ever think that I won't ever say this to your face, and this goes for situational wise, I'll do it, because it's bad manners. It is bad manners. Bad manners. You have someone that does a weekly show talking about wrestling, the ups and downs and their frustrations and everything like that. You want to come in and try to argue with people. But yeah, he didn't like that I have to tell the boys that I'm like, bro, he's looking for attention. Oh, don't trigger him with AEW, because here he comes, and flip-flopping. I was like, oh, look at that, the flip-flop. And then trying to tell me that it's all about being positive and not negative. And I hope you know that I view wrestling as a sports combat. No, you don't, buddy. No, you don't. Oh, the other incident too was when what is it? Oh, they talked about interim champions, and this is the only time that I gave my opinion on something. But I understand. I gave my opinion on interim champions because I just personally don't like it. I don't like it. But if you like interim champions, that's fine. I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, how dare you like it? And you're not agreeing with me. That's okay. You can like interim champions. I don't like them. I don't like an interim champion for the fact of the storyline gets messy. And, the wrestler who is recovering at home, which is Rhea Ripley in this case, I would not want her to rush her recovery of whatever injury that she got. I wouldn't want that to happen, because when you rush a recovery and you come back, you might re-injure that injury. I wouldn't want that. And so, that's the only time that I gave my opinion. But why do you have to add into the chat that UFC and like MMA and like boxing does interim champions all the time? We're talking about wrestling. Wrestling has its own rules. Wrestling has its own foundations. This is not boxing. This is not MMA. This is not UFC. Like, stop doing that shit. Stop including other stuff just because you want people to just be like, yes, you're totally right. Oh my God, positivity only. Positivity here, positivity there. And you want to know what? No matter how much I talk about this, no matter how many times I say it, I know Aaron Loves Wrestling is not going to change, because he did not change in that conversation at all. He still wanted to be the child. He still wanted to be the victim. And he still wanted to tell me that it's all about being positive and not negative. Liberals say that when they have nothing to come back with. And liberals will be the downfall of good ass production value and good ass groups. Again, I fucking seen it. I lived through it. So this is all taken from my freaking experience in life. Just over the past fucking 6 years of being a content creator and seeing the inner workings, and, one group wasn't working out. You find another group. That group isn't working out. You find another group, and that group is like, you are the token Latina. And that was like the final thing that he said, because I immediately told him after he was like, oh, it's all positive, it's not being negative all the time and all this bullshit. I just said, bro, you're fake about it. You are completely fake about it. And I said this as an Instagram reel too, that I don't understand why, if someone is going to be overly positive, why they come into someone else's live stream chat, try to control it, try to take it over, and try to be like, you guys, listen, whatever you're talking about on the panel, you guys got to stop talking about it because it's so negative. It has to be positive. This is what he does every single week. And there's other people that you probably know that do the same shit, but nobody calls it out. Like, truly calls it out. I mean, Chris calls it out sometimes too, and calls him an asshole over on Twitter, that, like, you know, because Aaron Loves Wrestling is going to cry like a little baby. But it's like, eventually you got to ghost him, and eventually you got to block him, and you got to kick him out of certain communities. Because if you're not going to change your ways, then go find someone else. Go find someone else to ride their coattails. You're riding the coattails of people who want really good work ethic around them, who have really good ambitions, who have larger than life dreams. And you're coming around trying to, start arguments. Try to be like, oh no, guys, positive only. Oh my God, guys, you're talking about AEW? AEW is not that bad, guys. Collision was good this week. Oh my God, the graps. Oh my God, the wrestling. Oh my God, are you talking bad about a woman wrestler? You can't do that, but let me ignore a woman in chat. That's exactly the fucking playbook. I've seen this way too many times. So I'm calling this out, not just, to start drama or anything like that. It's to give perspective. It's to give logic. It's to give reasoning. It's to give educational purposes. And this is what the Square Circle podcast does and has done for like 6 years. And I've done it with other people too that have crossed the line. You can go back into my big ass catalog where, I had to channel my inner fucking Eminem to diss somebody because they like really stepped over the fucking line. I talked about so-called friends that threw me under the fucking bus. I talked about, Bald Dollar. I talked about, Dave Metzler. I talked about people that like, they want to rule you. I even talked about my previous liberal group chat as well too, because I hate this whole notion of that you sell women some fucking scam bullshit of feminists, and then you want to be an ally, and then you want women to be really, really scared and like rely on something, and then don't rely on this, and then be a boss babe and all this kind of shit. All that kind of shit. And then you want to tell women that they should not be thanking men for the shit that they do. That's a whole nother thing. I've already explained it. I've already explained it. But yes, to tidy things up, because I do want to talk about Idol Maker's comment here. Idea Maker. Oh my God. I said Idol Maker. If it was up to me, I would definitely kick out Aaron Loves Wrestling from like all types of channels for the Sports Jedi Network. I'll be that bad guy. Because he is not contributing to the chat. He is making things a little bit more difficult. And by the way, like I said, a chat for a live stream should be neutral. No one should be controlling anything. If you want to give your perspective, awesome. If you want to disagree that you don't like green apples, that's totally fine. If you don't like, being a morning person, that's totally fine. But don't try to incite a co-host to get angry and frustrated and curse you out, because that's the type of fucking attention, that you want. If it was up to me, I would kick him out of everywhere. I have already, blocked him on Instagram because it just wouldn't, because what the fuck? That's why I said he has more than the opportunity to find me on here, and if he wants to rebuttal anything, he can. But, liberals don't do that. Liberals absolutely don't do that. And he did not like what I had to say to him in that chat, because, it's all true. It really is. This is what the liberal playbook is. And we do have to kick out the people who are destroying the wrestling fandom, because it should not be this way. It should not be, hey guys, I'm only coming in every single week. Oh, and then also, the couple of times where, they have to really be like, oh, someone else is streaming at the same time as us. And then he stopped and then came over and talked into chat. Yeah, I know, dude. I know that I'm preaching into the choir. I know that. But if we stop talking about it, then how is it going to help? People eventually have to wake the fuck up. People do. People eventually will have to wake the fuck up. So the more times that we talk about it, the more times that we give examples, and the more times that we can be like, bro, you gotta fucking change your ways, because if you're just gonna be toxic positivity 100% of the time, you're gonna wonder why no one wants to go to your shows. And you're gonna wonder why no one wants to talk with you. You're gonna wonder why you're gonna be the loneliest kid at the fucking table. And by the way, when he first came on the scene on Twitter and did that video inside of his car and whatnot, and being like, similar to like Leave Britney Spears Alone, where he was like, leave AEW alone. Oh, I knew he was bad for business for the wrestling community. I was like, I can see your bullshit from a mile fucking way, but yeah, I understand that I understand that I'm preaching to the choir. I totally do. I understand that. But I'm still gonna talk my shit. I'm still going to say, stuff that needs to be fixed. And this is something that needs to be fixed within the wrestling community. You don't allow leeches to stick around your community, and you don't allow leeches to stick around a really good group that got fucking established. And this is partly because I've seen other groups fucking fall apart. And I don't want to see another group fall apart. I do not. Because these guys, they have incredible ambition. I have not talked to Haas about his ambitions, but overall, they're on the same fucking page. So I do not want this group anything to happen because of outside forces, because of things that could have been controlled. And by the way, I'm not trying to say that like you have to cut off everybody, but if you know that the leech is not contributing to a very good conversation, not trying to be a supplement to the conversation in a neutral live stream chat, he got to go. If he's not trying to be like, oh, my buddies at, the Sports Jedi Network are live right now, guys. Hey, I want you guys to go support them as well. If you're not trying to be like, oh, hey, I'm available for a spot this day. Or, hey, when you go live, to be like, hey, they were talking about this and I wanted to give my own opinion on it. And you could do that. I just agree with the majority of like what they say on their live streams. And I'm there to add like supplement stuff. So like, for example, speaking of the Motor City Machine Guns, right? So you know how the Motor City Machine Guns does this, right? So sometimes Haas and Chris will, be man enough to say that they don't know certain things in wrestling, or they haven't followed a wrestler's career. So, me and someone else jumped in to explain to Haas like what this means. Simple. That is how you can be a normal human being without trying to be like, bro, I'm superior to you. If you don't know something in wrestling, you can always ask the question. Hey, I don't know what that means. Can you tell me what that means? Yeah, it's their hand signature. And it's basically like M is Michigan and they're from Detroit and whatnot. So we just explained that to them. If you as the leech is not doing that to give context to certain things, but you want to start an argument, you're not good for the chat. The chat isn't yours. You don't control the chat. But then again, I tend to run a tighter ship these days because people online get a little too fucking cozy with you. And when you don't establish your boundaries, everyone will walk on you. Everyone will try to destroy your character, whether they know you or not, or buy some bots to destroy your character. And I do not want that to happen to anybody that I know. Because the more that you start arguments in someone else's chat, the more they have the rapport, well, the more that they have the checklist to basically say that this is their character when it's not. And they can do defamation, untrue defamation. And I do not want that. These are things you got to think about as a content creator too. These are things you got to think about on the back end of things. Even though people might miss it, people might just overlook it. No, if you have a fucking leech in your live stream chat, kick them out. Don't hesitate. Don't do nothing, man. If you're not there to sort of like be a supplement to a neutral ground chat, no. But let's talk about the Motor City Machine Guns for a second, because I am completely done with some educational, observational thing. But yeah, again, if it was up to me, I would kick Aaron out of every like fucking circle. You don't need that. You don't need someone who's not going to try to change his ways. But yet then will tell you that you're negative. All right, cool. But let's talk about the Motor City Machine Guns for a second. I love those guys. I just don't know why they had to say the line of like, you think we wouldn't be here? This is where the best wrestle. The AEW wrestlers are really good at wrestling, but they're not really good at telling like consistent stories. So I don't know, man. I do understand that like sometimes it might just be a WWE thing where, you know, not everyone works out and whatnot, and like, you know, they end up having to like cut them from the contract and whatnot. But I don't know what it is. Obviously, we talk about metrics such as like attendance records and merchandise sales and stuff like that. But I do think eventually we got to get back to, and I'm talking about for like WWE, we got to get back to, what do you call it? Making the divisions that we have in professional wrestling feel larger than life. Because the tag team division is like suffering, even though now we have Tama and Talatanga with Haku coming in to destroy the tag team division. But, you know, the Motor City Machine Guns could have been in that sort of environment. The Motor City Machine Guns could have tried to revitalize, what do you call it? Johnny Gargano. I don't know, like do something. It's kind of obligatory introduction. Yeah, man. Just like Paige was like, oh my God, I got someone that listens to me. Yeah. I was just like, oh my God, Paige. Like, man. But yeah, like I miss the days when WWE will write their main stories and then like under it will be like the sub main stories. And the sub main stories, well, I can't say sub main stories, but you get what I mean. The sub stories of like the people that maybe won't be main, but they can have like their own time. You know what I mean? Like again, Motor City Machine Guns and like Johnny Gargano and who else? And somebody of like that nature will be good for like the underlining main like tag team division. While you have the more serious tag team division, while you have the more main tag team division stories of like, you know, Tama and Talatanga and like Haku. Okay, so other than that, I'm going to be wrapping up because apparently like, you know, I guess live streaming doesn't like a little bit over 2 hours. I hope you guys enjoyed this whole entire live stream. Maybe I should just do talking head videos. Like, I don't know. I just needed to get this out because it does not sit right with me. And I just respect the people that I collab with. I respect what they're doing. I really, really do. Idea Maker, thank you for the W stream. I highly appreciate it, dude. Just know that you guys can find me everywhere on social media, Marie Shadows. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button, leave a comment if you want to leave a comment. Aaron is more than likely to, you're more than welcome to leave a comment if you want to. I will respond to it. I probably. But yeah, so I'm over on Instagram, marieshadows.scp. Head over to my wrestling newsletter, marieshadows.substack.com. If you are a wrestler and you enjoyed this conversation too, head over to buymeacoffee.com/marieshadows. All of the links that I say are going to be down in the description and also in the comment section. Find me everywhere and anywhere. I like talking about wrestling. I'm very, very passionate about it. And yeah, don't let leeches break up a very, very good thing. I'll see you guys next time.